Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the meeting of the Wellington Shire Council this Tuesday, the 4th of June 2019. And before commencing, I just advise members of the public gallery should note that Council records and publishes Council's meeting via YouTube to enhance the accessibility of Council meetings to the broader Wellington community. These recordings are also archived and may be published on Council's website for viewing by the public or used for publicity or information purposes. At the appropriate time during the meeting, members of the gallery may address the Council, at which time their image, comments or submissions will be recorded. Members of the public who are not in attendance at the Council meeting but who wish to communicate with the Council via the webcasting chat room should lodge their questions or comments early in the meeting to ensure that the submissions can be dealt with at the end of the meeting. Please could gallery visitors and councillors ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode for the duration of the meeting, and if we could stand for the acknowledgement and the prayer. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gunai-Kurnai people, and pay respects to their elders past and present. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon the Wellington Shire Council, its councillors, officers, staff and their families. We pray for your guidance in our decisions so that the true good of the Wellington Shire Council may result to the benefit of all residents and community groups. Amen. No apology, CEO. Any declarations of conflicts of interest? No. Moving on to item A4, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. I move that Council adopt the minutes and resolutions of the ordinary Council meeting of the 21st of May 2019 and Council adopt the minutes and resolutions of the special Council meeting of 28th of May 2019.
Could I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hull. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Bye. Thank you. There's no business arising from the previous meeting. There's no late items, CEO?
None, Mayor.
No notices of motion. No petitions or joint letters. So we move on to item A9, invited addresses, presentations or acknowledgements. Councillor Bye.
Well, thanks, Mayor. I'd just like to do a small acknowledgement, I suppose, presentation as well. I was going to do it last meeting, but I had to delay it to this meeting. Last meeting was actually part of Celebrate Volunteer Week. I just want to talk a little bit about one of the events that volunteers in the Shire run. It's the Mother's Day Classic in Sale. It's run by a lot of volunteers, which is fantastic. It's run for a long time. Over the last 3 years in particular, it's raised over $30,000, which I think is fantastic. Many volunteers are needed to run an event of this calibre. It offers a 4-kilometre walk or run and an 8-kilometre run. Also, all proceeds raised go to the breast cancer research, and 1 in 8 women are diagnosed with this terrible disease in Australia. The committee would like to thank Darren McCubbin for giving up his time each year. He leaves his family at home, he gets up, he brings his PA and does a great job of emceeing the event, and he does that of his own choice. His light humour for the event is appreciated for all involved, and the commitment that he makes each year needs to be recognised by the committee. So the committee has asked me to present Darren with a small gift to say thank you for his commitment over the years, and they wanted to do it in Volunteer Week, but unfortunately he wasn't here at last council meeting. But yeah, just a small token. I don't know if you want to take your wife out, but it's a small gift that the committee would like me to pass on. So well done, Darren.
That's very kind.
Good on you.
Oh, that's very, very sweet of you. Speech. No.
Don't again.
That's lovely. Thanks, Ed. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Councillor Bye. Any questions on notice? Moving on to reports of delegates. Councillor Hull.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just over 2 weeks ago, in partnership with the CEO and the Mayor of East Gippsland, we went down to talk to the Minister for Agriculture, Minister Jacqueline Symes, in relation to the ongoing drought and the document that both our councils had recently adopted on the Tuesday before that, and to point out what the intentions were as far as we were concerned in the ongoing struggle that's how many people in our shires are going through. The acknowledgement was, well, the Minister unfortunately at the last minute couldn't make it, but her Chief of Staff as well as her number one agricultural advisor were there, as well as 2 representatives from Agriculture Victoria. They are all very well aware of what we're going through, and the requests that we had for some more support, which we've taken from various community meetings and from council requests for lots of things, didn't receive a lot of support. One of the things that I asked for on behalf of this council was we have $1 million in our budget set aside for some relief, and did ask for the government to match it, to give us a bit more strength. That, to this stage, hasn't happened. The advisor considered that it may not happen and probably wouldn't happen. At the same time, I requested once again on behalf of this council, and following from a motion from this council, for the Premier to come down and see that there is life on the other side of Traralgon. Promised that there would not be a hall meeting and for him to come down and get bashed up. But the people down here would love to see that the Premier of this state can see what they're going through. Now currently, that particular request has gone in and has been followed up by the Municipal Association of Victoria. So we'll look with anticipation that hopefully one day the Premier will suddenly see that 17% of the state is down this part of the world, and he'll come down and visit us, and come down while we've still got this drought that is causing some extreme hardship.
Thanks, Councillor Hole, and thank you on the basis that you can never be in two places at once. Thank you very much for taking that important message to the state government. On behalf of Council, I think I was doing something probably not as important as what you were on the day, so well done. And could I take this opportunity to also report on events of yesterday. So yesterday here in the Karang room, surrounded by a group of farmers and others from the area, along with my counterpart from East Gippsland, representatives from Latrobe. We met with the Federal Agricultural Minister, Bridget McKenzie, who was out and doing, I think, the very first of her, if you like, road shows or fact-finding journeys around Australia as a newly appointed Agricultural Minister. She was particularly engaging and engaged in her portfolio, and clearly that's a good sign to have a minister who appears to know what she's all about. So that was gratifying. We also had the opportunity, and they were looking for advice, and we were able, and you mentioned already, Councillor Hole, the document we put together with our agricultural reference group, along with East Gippsland, to deal with a three-pronged attack following the drought, and how we might transition, recover and adapt. And that document, along with the document that was put together in 2017 before this drought, which was an agricultural position paper, probably called something else, but that's close enough for the exercise. And as they were seeking strategic direction and advice, we were able to in fact place on the table, if you like, a body of work that had already been done here, and consideration that had been done in conjunction with East Gippsland. So I'm pleased to be able to report that meeting. I think it was well received. The Minister, as I said, was particularly engaging and got to hear a wide range of opinions in regard to hopefully the way forward. So I just thought I'd add that today. So if we move on now to item C2.1, Assembly of Councillors. Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. I move that Council note and receive the attached Assembly of Councillor records for the period 15th of May 2019 to the 29th of May 2019.
It was seconded by Councillor Crosley. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Bye. Nothing to report. Moving on then to something a little meatier then, item C2.2, the 2019-20 budget, fees and charges, strategic resource plan and rates and service charges. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Do you want to give 2 seconds, Councillor Stevens? And given that this, I just invite if there's anyone from the gallery who wishes to speak to this particular item. If not, we're back in your hands, Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to move the recommendation in relation to the budget. I'm not going to read it verbatim like I did adopting the draft budget, but I'll just move that Council adopt the 2019-2020 budget, including all the fees and charges and the following multi-year projects as listed there in the agenda, and that we adopt the 2019-20 Strategic Resource Plan, and we also adopt the following declared rates and charges for the period commencing 1st of July 2019 and concluding on the 30th of June 2020 as listed in the agenda, plus all the points in point part B, C, D, E, F, G and H, I think is the last one. Yes. So I'll move accordingly.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. That was seconded by Councillor Ripper. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Look, I think some other councillors want to say a few words as well, but just as a matter of interest, we will have a total income this year of 99.8 million. I'm just going to go with the points. Expenditure of 90.4 million. We'll have an overlying surplus of 9.3 million and an underlying small surplus of $585,000. Rates revenue will bring in $56,185,133. We'll have service charges of $6,363,293. And you'll note that with the final changes to valuations, we've had a slight reduction, I think, in the final rate in the dollar, general rate of 0.005410 and a farm rate of 0.004112, which will keep us within the state government's rate cap of no more than a 2.5% overall increase. I think, yes, I will allow other councillors to say a few words, but overall I think this is going to be another prudent budget, Mr Mayor. We've had a good look at all our resources, the expenditure we need to incur, and I think that it's very interesting that we had the special council meeting last Tuesday, which a number of submissions were received. It was a very good meeting, and I think that you'll note that we've been able to accommodate within the budget pretty much all the community requests for changes for 2019-2020. And look, I'll allow other councillors to just make specific comments in relation to various items. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Ripper, did you wish to speak next in regard to this matter?
Thank you, Mayor. As Councillor Stevens has just commented, there was quite a few, actually there was 32 budget submissions, and I'd like to thank all those who came in, took time to read and then to respond. And I think it was wonderful. We had school children from Hayfield, which gave a very, very good overview of the skate park that they want looked at. So the draft plan to redevelop that, once I said it is a draft plan, we're going to look after that. And we also, another couple is which is very important, a request for a boat ramp in Lake Guthridge, which was put into the budget the further year. However, we're bringing it forward because of the saleability and the types of adults and children that we have down there sailing, that they have a rubber dinghy. That is very difficult. We're getting older people who are putting a rubber dinghy in for safety, which is very important because this group of people are not instantly able to go out and do whatever they want to do. They have to have assistance. So I think to give them assistance and to give them something to look forward to augurs well with them feeling well. So that's another budget outcome. We have also, which is a very important part of history in the Wellington Shire, which is the water tower. We're going to provide $350,000 towards the upgrade.
3,000.
See, he was listening. This is what I like to do, that my colleagues are listening to me.
Indeed,
And thank you very much for picking that up.
Well
Very
moved the
good.
decimal point, Councillor Stevens.
Very good. So we are providing money towards that, and also at the Boysdale Recreation Reserve, we're providing $20,000 to go towards their upgrade of lighting. So I'd just like to once again thank all those 32 submissions, and it was wonderful that you took the time to submit, and each and every one of them was well worthwhile. However, we were only able to come up with a certain amount of money for a certain amount. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Ripper. Anyone else to speak to the budget? Councillor McCubbin?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to speak on a question that I asked last week in regard to the budget submission, in regard to the Locksport Safe Harbour, and note very pleasingly that we have done exactly what they've asked us to do last week, and that was to continue or to redevelop the feasibility study for the Locksport Safe Harbour. Might I just say to the general community that we absolutely support their endeavours to push this forward, in the sense that we absolutely agree with their vision for the future and Locksport being an absolutely beautiful place to live. I know you've mentioned that to me many times, Mr Mayor. I absolutely agree with you that this is a very special part on the lake system, and one that we would like to encourage people to go in. But it needs to be clear, I guess, to the local community, and I don't wish to raise their expectations too much, that what we're dealing with here is a feasibility study. It's about putting the ducks in order, if you like. We do not control that lake system. We do not control the funding of it, nor the necessary and requisite recommendations or permissions. However, that doesn't mean that we can't stand side by side with the local community, sharing their optimism and their vision for the future, and doing what we can. And one thing we can do is to collect information, the data, in pushing that forward. But let me be very clear, there are things that we can do and there are things that we can't do. And if I may use a metaphor, Mr Mayor, today is a significant anniversary in an event in my life that's reasonably important, to me anyway. And I would like to hope that when I get home at the end of this day, that there's a red sports car waiting for me in the driveway. However, we completely, and I'm sure that the people around this table absolutely support the fact that I might get a red sports car later in the day. However, that is beyond my control. That is absolutely beyond my control. It may be that I'll get the socks that I got last year with love, and that will be beautiful, okay? And I will look forward to that. The point I'm making is that you can stand beside someone and wish all you like, but the red sports car may not turn up. We are standing next to the Locksport community. We are going to put it into the feasibility study. We're going to see how the figures stack up, and we're going to support them in that endeavour. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor McCubbin. Anyone else to speak to the budget? Councillor Hull?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor, first off, I'd like to thank all our officers who work with the councillors around here to come up with this budget, working on a government limit of only 2.5% increase out in the overall scheme of the budget. And that's at a time when the government's raising its charges 7 and 8 and 9%. So we had to deliver with a 2.5% allowable increase in a world where the CPI is going higher and higher. I think the overall budget will be one that's be commended. It's delivered programs right across the Shire. But what people don't see is the recurrent budget, where the money goes in for the electricity, for millions of dollars for street lights, for the maintenance of swimming pools, for the halls, parks and gardens. They also form part of the budget, what we have to find the money for. Everybody loves Wellington Shire. We know that because they walk around and green lawns, green grass, cricket pitches, It's a great place, as we know, to live, work, invest, play and raise a family. And that comes back to us so often. So this budget, which I'm also commending on behalf of the mover and seconder, sets out to show that Wellington Shire is looking after its ratepayers, and we will go on from strength to strength from here in.
Thanks, Councillor Holes. Anyone else wish to speak to the budget? Councillor Crossley.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to, and it was brought to the fore with a previous workshop today, and it did make me realise, and it's probably worth mentioning, that this budget is not done in isolation. This is a budget that's been drawn from the council plan and the Wellington Shire document 2030 that we actually went out to the community when we were first on this council and had the responsibility to develop and inquire what the community wanted to see in our term of office around this table. And certainly this budget is a reflection, and it builds on the work that's been done before, and it certainly I think meets our vision, which was to have a happy, healthy environment and thriving communities in the heart of Gippsland. And you will see many of the aspects which go to the themes of communities, services and infrastructure, natural environment, lifelong learning, economy and organisational themes. That this, if you have a look at the budget, it actually breaks down into those themes. Even going to the request that we were able to support, as Carmel Ripper was saying, from the community for some support funding for the learning project. So it actually covers off that lifelong learning area. So I think it's important to realise that this budget is just not a yearly budget. It's a process over the term of this council and leading into the next, the final two years or 18 months of this council. And it's an incredibly important document, but it comes from and stems from the consultation that we had with the community at the very beginning of this journey. And also to say that there's $40 million of capital works, of which about 36 million is new works on top of multi-year projects. And of that, there's some 16 million on roads, footpaths, bridges and drainage throughout the Shire, and 1 million on our fantastic, as you say, green lawns and recreational area. So I think it gives a good idea of the priorities and the significance of the funding that we actually need to do into the basic infrastructure to keep our council moving and the community able to engage and make a living here in this beautiful area. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Crossley. Anyone else to speak? Councillor Stevens.
Yes, if you'd just like me to finish, Mr Mayor, I did have a couple of things additional that I'd like to say. One thing that we should just also, of course, reiterate is that we have in our budget $1 million for support of our agricultural industries and our farmers, and the council's working closely with our agricultural reference group, I think that's the correct term, is working closely with the agricultural reference group as to how we're going to use that money for the benefit of our farming communities and hopefully for the wider community as well. And this will be an important part of our assistance in the ongoing drought situation that we've faced. I mean, it's been wonderful that we've had a little bit of rain in recent week, but we've still got a long way to go to recover from what is really a very major natural disaster in our Shire. I don't think it's too fine a point that finally I had a light bulb moment a couple of meetings ago, I think, when the Manager of Development was talking about how, yes, just as badly as we can be affected by bushfires or floods, the drought is just probably a bigger natural disaster for our Shire and our community. And just to touch briefly on something that Councillor Crossley said, yes, we have to realise that our budget is an important link to our 2017-2021 council plan, and the other part of our budget that is also very important just to reference is the fact that the strategic resource plan for the next 4 years also is a major part of our budget. It's in the budget documents, in the council agenda, and that gives us the forward sort of estimates for our next 4 years of operation. So it's really pleasing to note that the budget shows us working strongly in a financial sense for the community. Councillor Hull, thank the council officers. I'd just like to reinforce that, because I think the officers, Mr CEO, you can pass to them the great work they've done, because it's a difficult thing to bring the budget together to try and meet all the requests that we receive from the community, and do so particularly in these times within a rate cap set down upon us by the state government. So thank you to them, and yes, I'm sure we'll have a successful year, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. And in closing this matter, could I just add my congratulations to the staff for the body of the work that they did to present us with options and a really well considered document, and to the maturity of the discussion around this table and considering these matters to lead us to this point. I think it's always good to sit in this chamber with this group of councillors who give matters their appropriate consideration. So I think to all concerned, it's been a job well done. Thank you. If we could move on then to item C 3.1, Strategic Land Use Planning Project Priorities 2019-20 Planning Project. Councillor Marr.
I move that Council support the following project being undertaken as part of the 2019-2020 Strategic Land Use Planning Work Programme, and one, an updated structure plan from AFRA.
Seconder, I think, was Councillor Crosley by that much. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Marr.
Councillors certainly consider and are already aware that our planning department has a significant work program for 2019-2020. However, we also have to be very mindful of the resources within our department and their capacity with regard to budget, as well as staffing the plans that we're putting forth with the work program. We also have to balance any possibilities of private requests for planning scheme amendments over the forthcoming next 12 months. So we need to consider the need of a potential work proposal, as well as urgency of that proposal. And at attachment 1, we've actually got 13 projects that have been considered, and all of them have certainly been considered carefully and discussed. And I also note that wherever there is an asterisk next to the project, it has been previously considered in previous years. So it is good to note that whilst these projects have not been chosen, they are still considered important to keep on the list. Now, with regard to the planning update, it has been agreed that we move forward on the MAFRA structure plan, and this is basically revisiting the outdated structure plan that currently exists. We will be looking at updating the strategic land use of the planning infrastructure, and looking at the informed direction for residential, commercial land and industrial uses for that land as well, which will certainly facilitate growth and support development into the future for the MAFRA area. It's also expected that this plan will also fit in nicely with the forthcoming proposals in the 2019-2020 year development of works, and one of those developments has been mentioned and just passed with the budget, and that is the MAFRA streetscape. So I'm sure that once this body of work takes place, there will be a great outcome for the community of MAFRA.
Thanks, Councillor Marr. Moving on to item C 3.2, Planning Decisions March 2019. Councillor Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council note the report on recent planning permit trends and planning application determinations between 1st of March and 31st of March 2019.
Seconded. Councillor Bye. Is that motion opposed? Not, the motion is carried. Councillor Rossetti, no? Anything further? Moving on to item C 4.1, road discontinuance and road exchange to formalise the creation of the lane off Macalister Street sale. Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. I move that pursuant to section 206, including clause 3 of Schedule 10, section 207A of the Local Government Act 1989, Council resolved to advertise its intention to discontinue part of a passageway on lot 2 TP 226561 Parish of Sale, and item 2 as read. Item 3, Council place a public notice on the proposed road discontinuance and the road exchange in local newspapers. Item 4, Council appoint 3 councillors plus an alternative representative to form the Technical School Lane Road Exchange Submissions Committee that is established by Council under section 2231B1 of the Act to consider written submissions, objections, and to hear any persons who, in their written submissions under section 223 of the Act, have requested that they are heard in support of their submissions. And item 5, in the event that there are no objections or submissions, Council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to progress the road discontinuance and road deviation, including placing a notice in the Victorian Government Gazette.
Second of that motion.
Should we be naming
Yes, we do. We need
councillors
to.
in there?
We
Should
do.
name the
We do.
councillors.
We
I
do.
think we're all on the same page.
We are on the same page. Yes.
We need to name the councillors.
We need to name the councillors, which are councillors. Yes, councillors.
Yes, I'd like to name the councillors being Councillor Bye, Councillor Rossetti and Councillor McCubbin, with an alternative of Councillor Stevens.
Second of that motion, Councillor Rossetti. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Bye, just speak to that.
Thank you, Mayor. What this entails is basically there is a small laneway that goes from Raymond Street through to the back of the high school. And there is a access point that goes from Macalister Street to the back of the shops as well through to the Spotlight car park. For whatever reason, back in the 1970s, the old City of Sale decided to put in place what we are trying to do now. They had numerous attempts to make this actually happen. For whatever reason, they failed each time and didn't continue and actually make it happen. Well, we are going to make it happen. So what we are proposing is that the road that goes from Raymond Street through to the back of the high school will be discontinued, and we'll do a road swap and actually make a formal road that goes from Macalister Street for access to the back of the shops through to the Spotlight car park as per on the screen, to make it more formal of how we access and use those roads. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Bye. Moving on to item C 4.2, purchase and sale of land Desailly Street off-street car park sale. Councillor McCubbin.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation that pursuant to section 189 of the Local Government Act of 1989, Council resolved to advertise the intention to sell part of Lot 1 TP 644057, Township of Sale, Parish of Sale, and 2, Council resolved to acquire part of Lot 1 TP 133811 at valuation, and 3, Council resolved to create a drainage easement of Lot 1 TP 740752, and 4, Council appoint 3 councillors. I'd like to name those. They be Councillor Bye, Councillor Rossetti, and Councillor McCubbin, plus an alternative representative being Councillor Stevens, plus Councillor Stevens as alternative. That's fine, thank you. Yep, representative, to form the Desailly Street off-street car park land exchange submissions committee that is established by Council under section 2231B.1 of the Act to consider written submissions and objections, and to hear any person who in their written submissions under section 223 of the Act have required that they are heard in support of their submissions. And 5, in the event that there are no objections or submissions, Council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to progress the sale and purchase of land, including consent to the certification of a plan of subdivision when the owner of Victoria Hall has completed the agreed works on the elevated structure, the transfer of the 2 metres squared of land from Lot 1 TP 133811, and the creation of the drainage easement.
Thanks, Councillor McCubbin. Second for that motion, Councillor Bye. Is that motion opposed? Not, the motion is carried. Councillor McCubbin.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and thank you for supporting this motion. This is one of the reasons why I am very proud to be part of a local government, is that in some ways we can work in the community interest, around some very difficult issues, and this is one of them. It involves a group of people who are doing up the Victoria Hall. Victoria Hall is a classic old building within the town, which has a heritage overlay over the top of it, and is a very significant site to the people of this town. It has featured many singers, including Dame Nellie Melba and others who performed on the stage there. Of course, its use as a stage is long past. However, it is absolutely magnificent that a group of people have decided to take that on and do that building up. Now, in the doing up of Victoria Hall and the associated doing up of the Cobb & Co, there was inadvertently a covering of an easement that they did not believe, they did not understand that we actually owned when they were putting in some fire services and so on. Look, to cut to the chase, a mistake was made, and our council officers have worked diligently with the applicant to try to resolve a good solution. Now, it's very important that we're open and transparent about that. It's very important that we go to the general community and see whether what we are intending to do is appropriate. It really is a very small amount of land, a very tiny bit at the back of Victoria Hall, but it's crucial as part of the overall character of that hall and what the proponent is trying to do, which is develop a really top-class facility out of a hall and maintaining the character of this beautiful old hall. So what we're doing is we are being very open about what we're trying to do, a bit of a land swap here to facilitate the development so they don't have to pull it all down and build something else. We think that's a bit silly. We are going to put up a committee, and we're absolutely keen to hear from anybody in the local community who has any concerns in regard to this moving forward. Look, I'd like to praise the officers concerned in trying to find a solution to what was a very difficult problem. I know several councillors went and had a look at the site. It was a knot that needed untying, and I'm very pleased that they were able to come up with that.
Thanks, Councillor McCubbin. Moving on, there's no urgent business, CEO. If we could move on then to item E, further gallery and chat room comments, and just make the point, gallery comments, you can drop that down for me, Chris, Trish. Comments are an opportunity for members of the public to raise any particular matter they wish. This allows those in the gallery to speak directly to councillors, but it is not a forum designed for open discussion or debate. We will listen respectfully to what you have to say and make the commitment that the Mayor will respond to you in writing within 1 week if required, and a copy of that response will be circulated to all councillors. This is not a forum for members of the public to lodge complaints against individuals, including councillors and staff, particularly as that individual gets no public right of reply to any matter raised. We take complaints seriously, and in line with the guidance from the Victorian Ombudsman and the Local Government Inspectorate, we request that any specific complaint against an individual be put in writing. This way, your concern can be properly dealt with while ensuring fairness to all parties concerned. If you wish to speak, we remind you that this part of the meeting is being recorded and broadcast on our website. Council official minutes will record that you have spoken to Council and the subject you spoke to Council about, but will not record any specific comments. We ask that you state your name in full, where you are from, and you have 3 minutes. Do you have anyone who wishes to speak to Council?
I spoke to the council late last year about some trees that had been cut down along Lagoon Lane by one of their fly-by-night contractors. Now, the description of the job I got back from the council was the number of trees along Lagoon Lane, Boisdale, were removed as they were determined to interfere with council road network. The trees that were not interfered with, the trees that was not interfering with the road were kept. Well, that's not right. I spoke to a number of people on the council about it, and all I got out of them was could have been, should have been, possibly, and don't know. No one could explain to me why they were cut down. The the council had to send their backhoe out to clean up the mess that they left with stumps in the ground and everything. And I've asked the council to replace the trees that were cut out that should not have been cut out. And they just said, no, we're not going to do it, which I don't think is fair, seeing they illegally cut the trees down. Also, I've been here a number of times with questions and that about safety and the way the council have been doing things like the Maffra Boysdale Road, Powerscourt Street, the trees there. I told the council that the trees they were planting were totally wrong, it would never grow. I got a reply that said, oh yes, they definitely grow. They've been tested, we've chosen the trees to be done. Guess what? They're all pulled out again because they were totally unsuitable. I came to the council and complained about the way the truck they were using to cart their mowers around was completely against OH&S rules and regulations. I got it back, no, we've done this, this and this. The Occupational Health and Safety came down, put a pin notice on it, the truck council had to buy a new truck. I also brought to the attention, and also other people brought to the attention, the Hayfield football ground new building where they didn't put a handrail up. I got a letter saying, oh yes, it's all right. Since then, I think it's 4 people have been hurt. One's possibly going to take legal action, and the council's had to put up the handrail there. And I also brought to the attention that the concrete you put in the mall over there was no good. It would fade, it would stain, it would do all this, and I was guaranteed that it wouldn't. And since then, they've now painted it because it was. So why isn't the council doing their due diligence on all these things and finding out what was going on and why they were doing the wrong thing? Also, I'd like to find out how much this art gallery is costing the council, us as ratepayers, to keep it running, and why there's no charge on it. And I know that the answer last time I asked this question was that the state government said we can't. Every other group in the Shire has to pay their own way, has to charge for people to enter, has to run their own business. Why is the council condoning this discrimination against about 90% of the Shire ratepayers by making all this free and subsidising this when they should be charging people to enter this library? Not the library, the art gallery. Every other group has to pay. So I'd just like to find out why the council won't make representation to the state government and say, well, this is discrimination.
Okay, thank you. If you can leave your details with Mr Hasty at the end.
He knows me quite well.
Oh, Mr Hasty doesn't need the details then. And as we've undertaken, we'll respond to you within the week.
No worries.
Make sure that's circulated to all
And all councillors will get the response to that as well. Anyone else wishes to address council?
John McLennan anyway. This is pretty big, a lot bigger than I am. I'm on a hiding to nothing. Gippsland Water compulsory taking my land, or our land, and they haven't got it yet because they haven't paid, but still they're not going to pay much. So therefore, I felt I had to get the land, the road, Flamingo Road clear, because council, well, Rosedale Shire had that road maintained until amalgamation, and Wellington, we've just let it grow over. The road was blocked.
John, before you go on, I think this matter's currently before the courts. If the matter's before the courts, it's not appropriate for us to hear it if that's its status.
Well, I'm asking council a bit of support and honesty. The fire brigades are happy with what I've done. I've done a good service to the community at my cost. I haven't charged the council I haven't charged the council in spite of the fact I reckon the council do owe me money over the years, and I've been upfront with. I don't go around corners. I'm not afraid. You can't beat the truth. Big question. Anybody here think I'm a criminal?
Well, I don't think we're
Yes
going
or
to...
no? Because
John, we're not going to respond to that question.
Criminal. I don't think that's fair.
As I said, and also we made the point at the very beginning about speaking in regard to specific officers or councillors, and that's not an acceptable practice here, so we're not going to respond to your question. And as I said, if this matter's still before the courts, I'd ask you that you cease the discussion in regard to anything that may be before the courts at this moment.
Can you explain that to me after the meeting, please, exactly what you said?
Yes, I will, but it's reasonably clear.
I'm half deaf, councillor.
John, I'll just repeat that slowly. In regard to this matter, if the matters you're discussing are matters which are before the courts in any shape or form, then it's inappropriate for us to hear them here or respond to them here while the matters are perhaps before the courts. So you will know what's before the courts perhaps better than what I do. So in those circumstances, I'd ask that any matter before the courts or any matter which relates to an individual, we made that point that we in fact will not deal with that, and a complaint against an individual would need to be made in writing. So they're the guidelines in regard to what we're doing here today. So I just want to make that very clear.
I can't, no. Well, I'm sure most people understand, and it was clear to most people who've been a bit half deaf and a bit...
I'm happy to have a conversation with you later as well, John.
Old, I suppose. But I was just in a no-win situation. I'm just wondering if the council, any of the councillors like to talk to me about it, and possibly they may be able to. Where there's a will, there's a way. I've only done good in life, in my opinion, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, John. Thanks very much. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to council? We have any chat room comments, Mr. CEO? I don't believe we have any need to move into closed session today. If not, on that basis, I'll declare the meeting closed.